Welcome back to the Flagship Celts Are Here podcast. We've got a special guest this week. We're joined by actor, Kano Foundation trustee, Celtic Foundation ambassador, and good guy Gianni Capaldi. Gianni, you're joining us from Scotland just now. I asked you the most stupid question there about where you were joining us from, considered to be the middle of the night in California. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm in Scotland, so it's not 4 a.m, which is better.
Aye, no, definitely. And I'd imagine weather-wise, what was it kind of like in LA just now compared to back here?
Well, LA and Vegas, it's always sunny. They do have a bit of rain in January, but that's maybe about 10 days. But yeah, it's a lot warmer than it is here. I don't think I'd be in the pool, but it's a lot warmer.
Still maybe get the shorts on at this time of year then, aye?
Possibly.
Aye.
I'm feeling adventurous.
Aye, absolutely. Hopefully you'll be feeling a wee bit adventurous with some of these questions that are going to get batted at you. As I said, you've did a lot of these before, so probably try and stick to it as general Celtic chat as possible. You get along to as many games as you can, both men's first team. I see we're along at one of the women's team games at Excelsior a couple of weeks ago, so we want to touch on that. But in general, we're kind of in this midst of the World Cup. We've got a few weeks to go until we're back in domestic action away to Pittodrie at Aberdeen. What's been your take in Celtic so far this season?
I think they've been wonderful. I think they have been, they've stuck to their guns. We've had a couple of not so good games. We hit a slight patch, I think, where we were so used to winning 3-4-0, by 3 goals, 2 goals, 4 goals, whatever it is, that sometimes when you win 2-1 and 1-0 and 3-2 or last minute goals, you kind of think, well, that's we're below par. But the reality is the mentality of Celtic has been a winning team, and they fight right to the end to have that winning team. I remember going up to the St Johnstone game, and I was at a St Johnstone game, and if I remember, they scored in the 90th minute, 91st minute. Most teams would have considered, right, that's it. We're a draw it. Kick the ball at the park and hope. But Celtic just have that right to the death mentality, and it's true what Ange says, and it's very cliched when you say we never stop. They actually never stop till that final whistle, and that's what makes. I think that's the difference between Celtic now, maybe Celtic a few years ago. They just have that right to the death mentality.
Yeah, you don't see us capitulate like maybe we would have in previous years, and it's almost been the trademark and the beauty of Celtic, those late goals. I mean, you'll have experienced loads over the years, and it's amazing when it happens. Not always good for the old ticker, the heart when it happens, but you get some feeling. And again, it's been difficult because for every team I think going into this kind of campaign with the World Cup where it is, you knew you needed a big squad to tackle it. You knew you were going to have a lot of games. The Champions League games came thick and fast. And when you were approaching that with a squad that hadn't played at that level, it was going to be difficult. But domestically, apart from one game at St Mirren, it's been absolutely perfect. So I think domestically, really no complaints, but probably Champions League, a bit of frustration in there just with the amount of chances we created.
I mean, listen, I'll probably get stick for this, but Kyogo last year was absolutely outstanding, and even fighting through his injuries, and even I'll never forget the 2 goals he scored in the Scottish Cup?
The cup final.
The cup final, aye. I mean, it was just absolutely phenomenal, those 2 goals. And Giakoumakis has come on and done a good part as well. He steps up when he gets the chance. But the reality is when you're in the Champions League, and we've had so many chances to score in the Champions League, it's not like, the other teams had 20 shots in goal and we've had 1. We've been up there with the stats. It's just we haven't turned those chances into goals. What if Callum's shot didn't come off the post and it trickled in? What if Kyogo, the amount of chances that Kyogo's had or Giakoumakis has had, and it's just, if any of those goals went in, it would have been a completely, I know this is an obvious remark, but it's a completely different picture, because we wouldn't have been surprised that we would have been in the next round of the Champions League, because we actually created the chances, and we created many chances. We just haven't found the back of the net with them. And, there's not many performances in the Champions League that we can say that you're proud that, that even though we get beat 3-0 by Real Madrid at home, even though, or whatever it was, half-time we're getting 0-0, we have other chances. It's amazing. It's brilliant. I even went to Madrid, I went to Warsaw, and I felt that we should have beat Shakhtar at Warsaw. We were the better team. And, it's just, if only we turned the created chances into goals, you wouldn't be surprised if you're in the next round. Like, you would have said, well, we're the better team, we deserve to be in there.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot about the manager's belief that even instills in us as fans that you're travelling to Warsaw, as you say there, and you're thinking, yeah, we can possibly go here and pick up something. And even that night at Celtic Park, when you're heading 0-0 against the reigning European champions, you think we're still in this game and we've still got a chance here. So I think that says a lot about the belief that the manager's got and installed in us as fans, and hopefully next season. Joe Hart was really quick after the Madrid game to the Marco, and we'll see if the lessons have been learned from the 6 games here if we're in the Champions League next year. But I think you'll probably see a different kind of Celtic animal in the Champions League next year if we make it there again.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to make it there again. I think we automatically qualify when we will win the league. So I definitely do think we'll be there. I can't see Rangers pull 9 points back. I'm not surprised if the gap gets bigger and bigger. So, but yeah, next year, definitely think we've learned a few lessons. And, that whole shock and awe thing for the Champions League. I mean, that noise, were you at the game at Parkhead when we played Madrid, the first game? When they played the Champions League music, I have never heard a noise that loud. It was deafening. And I took David Marshall, the ex-keeper, and he's the same thing. He's never heard something that loud. It was just such a Champions League roar. It was just incredible.
Yeah, and obviously Marshall, somebody who's played in the Camp Nou and whatever else, and big nights at Hampden for Scotland too. So pretty much says a lot about it. And that roar is something, as you say. I mean, that chance that Callum McGregor has against Madrid goes in. I think with the crowd, it kind of carries the team a wee bit, and the players have even touched on that. I think Matt O'Reilly spoke about being able to run that extra, kilometres in the game if you've got that behind you. So I think there's a lot of positives to take from it, a lot of lessons to be learned. But we just need to keep going forward. And something that the manager spoke about, keep going forward, is being ruthless in the transfer market. And obviously at this point in time, because of where the World Cup break is, usually January's a rumour when winter breaks and whatever else start. And we've already made one signing in UK Kobayashi. It's just really, really refreshing to get business done early. Did it again, at Hogmanay last year. We brought in 3 players from the J League. We got Matt O'Reilly in pretty quickly after the whole Riley McGree situation brought down. I remember sitting last week out the blue, the Twitter notification comes through and bang, you've got your first signing in for January. Just really, really refreshing.
That's right. And I heard we're looking at Alistair Johnson as well.
Yeah.
For the Canadian. So, I don't know much about the player. I've only saw what you guys have seen at the World Cup for Canada. What I heard from folk in the States is he's a decent player. Obviously, going to Celtic is his chance to make the next step up, and and if he improves his game up to the Champions League kind of level, then that's where we really want to be. Only thing is a little bit worrying though. It feels like Juranovic is on the way out, and I kind of like Juranovic. Maybe not the best defensive right back in the world, but definitely going forward, he was quick and great penalty taker, great courser of the ball. So I do feel that we might miss him a wee bit, but hopefully if he does go and Johnson replaces him. And we've always got Ralston, but Ralston's a different type of player than Juranovic. So hopefully Johnson, if he does step into Juranovic's boots, he does a great job.
Yeah, and I think, we spoke about the confidence the manager gives you going into games, about belief, and when you're watching Champions League games or whatever else, you've also got that confidence in them to deliver on signings. It's pretty much been a perfect track record with everybody he's brought in. If you think back last summer, that the turnover of players that we had coming into the club, all the guys that went out, important guys, like I know somebody that you know really well in Scott Brown. You lost a major leader from the dressing room going out the door, but you managed to rebuild the squad and get to the point of being back in top of domestic dominance once again. And, you know, bringing in someone who's Canadian international, over 30 camps for his country. We don't know a lot about him, and much like you, Gianni, I've only really saw him at the World Cup, but it just looks as if it's going to fit for us. And again, it's about being, I think, active in the market rather than reactive, which we've probably been in recent years.
Yeah. We're always, I mean, Andrew's always on it. He's never not on it. And it's great. I think we're one of the only clubs I know that does their business kind of like before everything kind of starts. So, you know, and I don't know, again, the thing is, we don't know what these players are like that he's bringing in, but, you know, you've got to have faith in him, and he's never really let us down in the past. So he seems to find these gems in leagues that we don't kind of follow. I think now after this World Cup, I think there'll be more awareness of these kind of, you know, the Japanese leagues, and I think there was a boy from South Korea we were looking at today.
Yeah, yep.
You know, so these are leagues that we don't really, you know, we don't know much about. We don't really follow. That's just down to TV rights and commercial rights, I guess. So, but I'm sure there's great players there as well, you know.
Yeah, and I think also you're kind of looking at avoiding the kind of the cliche that's been put as a kind of World Cup tax as well. If you get Alistair Johnson done early, you know, kind of depending on where his World Cup journey takes him, and then maybe paying his parent club a wee bit extra money. But yeah, the one with Goose Sung, I think his name is. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. He obviously featured for South Korea at the World Cup, and again, that kind of was interesting last night. That story came out in parallel with the story around Giakoumakis. But I think what's interesting, Janet, to take from, you know, the link with Giakoumakis and Juranovic, just take both players out it. Both are contracted to Celtic until 2026. So any kind of panic that's maybe in the media around, you know, contract negotiations and whatever else, no matter what happens, Celtic still ultimately have the upper hand on
Yeah,
any
we
player
don't have
who's
to sell
tied
them
down
now.
for 4 years.
Aye, we don't have to sell any of them now. So, you know, I think Giakoumakis is a little bit delicate, to be honest with you, because I'm not so sure that I'm not so sure he's very happy with always playing kind of second fiddle to Kyogo, and that's just, you know, every player has the right to say that and do that. So if that's his issue, then, and he wants to seek, you know, to be first on the team sheet as your forward, then somewhere else, and that's up to him. But he signed a contract, and, you know, again, 2026, we've had players count down their contracts, and, you know, Celtic are not scared to do that with any player. So, but I don't think he'll leave in January. I mean, if anything, if he'll leave, he'll probably leave in the summer, but I can't see him leaving in January, honestly.
You'd hope not. And again, it would suit, you know, ourselves much better for that to be the situation. But again, it was interesting what the manager said at the AGM about being aggressive in the transfer market, wanting the club to evolve all the time. We know ourselves as fans that the way that the structure of the club works, it's a self-sustaining business model. It depends on player trading. And again, with both these guys, if you're looking at their age, it's maybe, you know, in that category of at 27, they're maybe thinking it's time for the big move, the big money move.
Yeah.
And if you really want the player trading model to work for ourselves and reinvest properly back into the squad, I think really and ultimately every player does have their price, but you don't want to disrupt the team too much. But again, you've got confidence in the manager to know when will be the time to sell, and when will be the, you know, who will be the right player to then bring in to replace him.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, I'm just going to move because I've got the lights in my eye here, but you're talking about Celtic's trading model right now, and I think that the difference between I think Michael Nicholson is a lot to factor into this, because, I mean, I can't stop singing his praise. Michael Nicholson has ensured that the reinvestment in the Celtic has been carried out. You know, he's his best. I mean, his interest close to art is Celtic, and, you know, I mean, I remember at the end of the season when we had the option on Jota and Carlton Vickers. So, you know, I was like, well, we're either going to get Vickers or we're going to get Jota. You know, that was the old mentality of Celtic. Well, we can only afford one of them. Which one do you want to get? And we would have let one of them go. But the likes of Michael Nicholson now, he has ensured that, you know, Celtic first, that reinvestment first. So, you know, they recognise, buying Vickers at 6 million or 6.5 million, whatever it is, that, he's instantly a 10 million, 12 million, 15 million player. And that's just the way it is, because if he keeps on growing and he goes to the World Cup and whatnot, then Champions League, suddenly that, an English club would pay that. So that's a good thing about Celtic now. Under Michael Nicholson, they're not short-sighted. He's all about rebuilding and helping sustain Ange, give him what he needs and try to give him, you give the manager the tools so he can create a winning team. And I really do feel that Michael has just really got behind Ange.
Yeah, and it creates an easier position for, people at board level too, that fingers can't be directly pointed at them when things go wrong. When you give the manager full backing and support, it allows them to take responsibility for anything that goes wrong, and allows your football department and whatever to fully progress. But as you say, with Cameron Carter-Vickers and Jota, that probably was what everybody was feeling. If we get one, we won't get the other. But as you say, we brought both in. It's why I think either or are our most important signings in the summer. Just in terms of, I think it was 9 arrivals in the summer, including both. So it was 7 kind of new faces. What's been your take on them all? I know you're close to one of them, and Moritz Jenz, who's maybe played a wee bit more football than he might have expected due to Carl Starfelt's injury and whatever. But I certainly think, we'll start with Moritz Jenz, who I know you know well. He stepped up to the plate for Celtic when he needed to at Champions League level and whatever, and he's fitted in pretty well to the side.
Yeah, Moritz, I mean, every player needs a bit of gelling in time. And, when he first came in, I know he got a few goals, and then suddenly, you drop because we've got Starfelt and it's Starfelt's position, and, it's one of those hard ones where you're kind of done that, and then Starfelt get injured and get put in, and then Welsh came in. And but yeah, Moritz, it's he wants to get better. I feel like Moritz has got potential, a lot more potential. He wants to get better. He wants to improve. He really stood up. I feel like some of the Champions League games, he really stood up at the back for us, and he was magnificent. I think he was great. There's obviously, with season after season, there's an improvement to be made in every player. But I feel that he's still he's only played half a season for us. Yeah. So I know there's been a couple of mistakes here and there, but who hasn't? Starfelt has, Vickers has. A lot of the players at the back. Every now and then you'll have a wee boo kind of thing. So, but yeah, I feel that Jenz, he just needs maybe toughen up a little bit when it comes to the headers. He needs to get a wee bit more stronger. Felt like at the St Mirren game, we lost 2-0. We can't say our defence let us down because we still didn't score. So it's different if it was 2-1 or 2-2 and we've leaked 2 goals at the back. We still didn't score. So I believe that, I know Ange made about 6 changes that game, and it worked for us when we went to, where was it we went to? Was it Ross County before or something? Or the game before?
Yeah, in the cup. Yep, Ross County.
Aye. And it worked well. We came through it. We rested some first team players, and it was great. And then he chose to do the same thing again, and it kind of backfired us on his end. But I think it was across the board. But what I did notice, and what I did even mention was, I feel like when it comes to, you've got to be that physical. That's what Vickers has. Nobody's pushing Vickers off the ball. Nobody's jostling Vickers for that space. When Vickers is standing there, he's planted. He's like a Mjällby. Nobody was ever going to move Mjällby from his spot. I just feel that if Jenz can just beef up a wee bit in the sense that make that area his, then I think he'll be a fantastic player.
Yeah, and you even saw that the other night. I watched the USA versus Iran the other night, and it was excellent. Vickers, just doing what, as you say there. I think his nickname at Celtic's the Fridge, and you can kind of tell why. He used to be, he's a real big enforcer at the back, and as you say, Gianni, that there's no way you're shifting him.
No.
When he plants his body into the ground and shields the ball a bit of else. But kind of back to Moritz Jenz, I'd spoken to Peter Grant before he came in. Peter obviously had him doing it Fulham and whatever else, and he spoke about maybe lacking that wee bit physical side. But as you say, I think he's came into a bit of a game at Celtic. I mean, he's came up against the toughest opponents in the Champions League. He's looked good, and I certainly don't think he's let himself down at all. And he's a player that come next summer, I would hope we would be looking at to bring in permanently. But just in terms of Moritz experiences, known him. Is he enjoying life at Celtic?
Yeah, he is. He is. He's loving it. He's loving the atmosphere. He's loving the fans. He's loving the club. They settle into another just moved house in Glasgow, so they've got the house that they kind of wanted, and yeah, he's very, very happy at the club, I'm sure, and who knows what's going to happen. Obviously, we're buying a lot of centre backs, so we need to see if the club are if they're going to financially splash out on him to bring him in or not. But here's hoping. Hopefully, if he's had a decent first half to the season, so hopefully the second half. He got a concussion in the last game when he played in Scotland, and he got brought off. But he didn't want to come off, but he just he got a full blown concussion at that point, so he couldn't keep going. They brought him off for just in case,
Yeah,
but
and he's probably and likely to feature. We've got some tough games coming back after the break, so I'm sure he'll play a big part. We've got really 3 tough away games, which we're going to get on to. But
Aberdeen, right?
Yep, Aberdeen's the first. We've got Easter Road and we've got Ibrox, which we'll get into. But we're going to add Quinny in, our usual other Thursday, Thursday contributor.
Hey.
Quinny, meet Gianni.
Hi, Quinny. Hi up. How you doing, mate? Another great thing about Celtic is we've got so much depth. We can replace players now that if a player gets injured. I remember, a few years ago when we were gasping for players, we didn't have any players. So now we, bringing in the centre back now, and it just adds depth. I don't know if Stephen Welsh is cutting the grade right now to compete. Hopefully he ups his game and he gets into that kind of mindset as well. But we'll end up with Starfelt, Vickers, Jens, the new boy that we just announced, and then if Welsh ups his game, he'll be in the kind of mix for vying for two spots. So now we're covered.
Something myself and Quinny spoke a lot about in this is Celtic's ways of doing business with a loan structure, young players coming into the club, getting first team games, wanting them to develop at that stage. And for Stephen Welsh, something but myself and Quinny spoke about in this is that kind of that element of game time. He's been fortunate in the sense that for other guys, unfortunately for them, that they've missed out. We've already touched on Starfelt missing games or whatever. It's like giving Welsh that chance to come into the team. But for his development, Gianni, do you think he maybe needs that wee bit of time away just to get more game times under his belt, like what maybe Mikey Johnson's getting in Portugal just now?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be completely honest about Welsh. I feel that Welsh, when you pass the ball to Welsh, he has to stop the ball and pass it. Stop and pass. Like there's not that quick fluidity that you get, but that only comes with game time. And if you watch him, he slows the game down when we're playing a very aggressive attacking game, and it involves every single player in the team. So I just feel that it's not down to his ability, it's just down to game time. If you're kicking the ball every single week competitively, then you have that in you, and it's just that quick. Whereas if you're starting and not playing in a game for 3 or 4 weeks, and what really can you can't keep the sharpness that game time gives you. And I think that's the problem with Welsh. And getting him out to somewhere else where he can play every game, every week. Maybe 2 games a week. The his sharpness, his fitness, it's just going to go through the roof again. So, and that's what he needs. He needs that to develop. Unfortunately, at Celtic, we don't have the chance. We can't give you a chance because we need to win the games. There's no forgiveness at Celtic. Every single game must be a win. So, unfortunately, it's very difficult. We've got some really great young players at Celtic, and I feel that they merit. I've got to say, Rocco Vata has been excellent. He is honestly, Rocco Vata is the next best thing at Celtic coming through the ranks, and he's only 17. And I don't know if you've watched him or not, or you've seen him in action or not, but even watching him when he comes on at Australia, he just has that spark. And he's 17. He's young, and now he's mixing it with the first team, first squad. So I really feel that he's a real strong name for the future, and those are the kind of players that we need to kind of really nourish and watch. But, that's when you're probably winning 3-4-0 and you say, right, start bringing them on at that level. When the game's won, guaranteed, then, because that's our future. That's how we get our Kieran Tierney's of the world and, Callum McGregor's, or else we'll not get them again. We've got to nourish them.
Yeah, and structurally, Stephen Wilson talked about, we don't have that way of playing, reserve football. And if you're out the team 1 week, you can go in there and keep that sharpness up. But the structure of it in the Lowland League, he's not able to play in it. And Quinny, to bring you in this, Gianni talks about Rocco. I'm also one who thinks he's one for the future, but I just worry about how we do nourish him into that first team. I think last season, Ange obviously seen something in Ben Doak, who's somebody we've spoken a lot on here. He tried to bring him into the team. There was too much temptation. I think with Liverpool, I see he's been linked with loans away within the Premier League at this point in time with Ben Doak, but it's just how you bring him into the team. And there's also that concern of, if you think back last summer, I think when we brought Leila Abad in, he was 19. And if you're bringing in players who's round about that kind of similar age category of players, there's a bit of a worry that, you're maybe sending out the wrong message to younger talent. But I really do hope that Rocco's the next player to come into that Celtic team, because again, we know the manager likes versatile players. He's very versatile. We can play in either flank, he can play through the middle and the 10 and the centre forward position. How do you think we really get him into this Celtic team? Is it that by the time you're maybe hopefully high and above the hills, in the league, that you bring him into the team, or is it cup games, or where do you really see the chance for Rocco Vata?
I don't know. I think this will be the first chance we get obviously Ange tried to bring Ben Doak in to the fold last year. And I get the feeling with Doak and with Dembele, Karamoko, that it was maybe Ange coming in, it was maybe a little bit too late for them. Like they'd already gave Celtic chances, like, oh yeah, I'll stay in our season, get some minutes. And then maybe by the time Ange just came in, they've already kind of taken the hump and they're going to move on. So I think Ange will have that kind of thing in his mind, that we've had some talents come through and we don't want to lose them. And like Gianni's saying, there's no room for the weak at Celtic, so if you are going to break into this team, then it is survival of the fittest, and the standards that are set in the first team now are exceptional. Whereas with Doak, Dembele, even Tierney to an extent, and when they've come through at the team, they've very quickly, or in teams gone by, because we've been weaker, they would then be seen as oh wow, this guy could maybe start for us, and when that's the standard, you don't really get youth players really pushing the standard is high. They're then just coming into training and thinking, I'm as good as these other guys. But with the quality of the first team, any guys that do break in now, Ralphson's a great example of this as well, is when the level's that high, you then should get the best out of the young players. But the thing that we've maybe lost on with the Dokes and whatever is that they've maybe been given promises in seasons gone by and they've not came to fruition. And one thing we know about Welsh with Ange is that Ange seems to back up his promises with players. If he says, I'm going to play you, he'll play them. And that might be the start of the turn. So whether it's cup games or the league, I'm not too sure. But I've got good confidence that Ange will have the foresight to try and integrate these guys better than what they have done in the past.
There's also a big difference of morals and loyalty between Ben Doak and Rocco Vata. Rocco's had numerous suitors this year, from the Serie A to France. So, and he's, his plan is Celtic. His love is Celtic. He's been there since he was 7 years old. His parents are magnificent leaders to him. Not leaders, but they've taught him really well. And his father played with Celtic, and and that's the difference. It's just Rudy's a really he's such a grounded guy and lovely parents. Honestly, if you can have people that try and guide you in life, and his mum and dad do a great job, and Celtic's enrooted in their family, so that's the difference between him and Ben Doak.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to Rudy and Anne Francis here, Gianni. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I know both are top people, and as you say, really different probably ways of thinking and looking at it. And I really hope for Rocco's sake he does get that chance in the first team, and hopefully it is at some point this season. But in terms of age wise and different ends of the spectrum, one guy that we brought in, Gianni, in the summer was Aaron Moy. I know there was a lot of criticism probably unfairly, I would say, directed at him. You know, when he came in, about the type of player he was, at the profile of him at 31 years old and whatever else. But his World Cup performances, certainly in the previous 2 games, have been outstanding. And, you know, I was really shocked to see when I looked at it. He's played 20 games for us this season, Aaron Moy. What's been your take on him since he came
in? So, I mean, look, we get him for nothing. He's on a free. So it's not like you're forking out 2-3 million, 4 million for a player and he's 31. So anybody who criticises that strategic move is null and void from the get-go, because he's a freeway, so he's not costing us, just his wages and that's it. I mean, you know, we've still got McCarthy on the books, so you know he's a very similar kind of player. I feel that McCarthy was more attacking, and I think that's why Moyes probably brought more criticism, is because his style of play. It's not that he's a worse player or a bad player. It's his style of play is it's more defensive. He slows the game down. Moyes slows the game down, and that's what, you know, the difference is. So when we're doing this attacking fluidity, and you've got Jota running up the wing and Abada there, and you know Kyogo or whoever it is, everybody's running, and then suddenly it comes to Moy, it's holding. He'll turn, he'll pass it to the side, and that's the difference. Why I think, you know, it doesn't mean it's not an effective style of play. It's just not the attacking game that we're all kind of like craving for sometimes.
Quinny, what was your take being him at the World Cup? I must say, I was pretty surprised. I agree with what Gianni says. I know there was somebody who described him in the Bernabeu as like taking a breadstick to a knife fight, which I thought was a wee bit unfair. But you know, I've been impressed with him in the 2 games. I mean, against France, you know, a top player would, you know, come off the back end of a result like that against France. But against Tunisia and certainly Denmark, when he was up against a tough opponent in Christian Eriksen, you know, him and Jackson Irvine are old players, you know, had a complete stranglehold of the game, and, you know, testament to them and the Aussies for getting to the knockout stages once again. And I'm interested to see them go up against Argentina. I know everybody's saying it's, you know, already a team formerly coached by Ange Postecoglou up against Lionel Messi's like football and masterclass. But what's been your take on Moy at the World Cup? I know you've been World Cup daft the past few weeks.
I know he's definitely surprised. I think Australia as a whole really surprised, and obviously qualifying right at the end last night. And yeah, Moy and Irvine were fantastic against Denmark. But I think kind of similar to what Gianni's saying, when we bring in McCarthy at first, again on a free transfer, we're looking at this guy, ex-Premier League, international, he's had a bad time with injuries, but he's got like the quality to come into this team and be a useful member on the training park and maybe to fill in some minutes. But McCarthy is kind of really, for lots of different reasons, really disappointed even in that role. Whereas I think Moy can do that. And as we've seen, he's played 20 games already. He can actually contribute on the park, not just the training pitch and having a laugh in the changing room with the lads afterwards, you know. So I feel that maybe both of them, in terms of Ange, when he's building the team and thinking about, right, well, I need some senior leaders, I need some young players, I need some of this and some of that. Maybe McCarthy and Moy, they're almost there to kind of be the same role within the team environment. And I think the manager will always have a place in the team for people like that, because you do need experience with young players. But where I think a lot of fans get frustrated with Moy is that you hear like, oh, he's been in the Premier League and he's done this and he's done that. And you're expecting maybe a bit more of somebody that will command a game, like we've seen him do for Australia. And when Australia qualified for the World Cup, they knocked out Peru in a knockout. And Moy, like, I didn't see the game, but the statistics were through the roof on that match. He absolutely ran, you know, defensive and offensive statistics. And I think we expect to see that. But like Gianni's saying, like in the SPL, when he's played for us, like, it doesn't really seem to have that elite pace on the ball, you know, where he knows to keep the tempo moving. He definitely has the technical attributes. He can play left foot, right foot, can probably play in all those 3 midfield spots to an extent. But the Celtic fans, you want to see somebody that gets you off your seat a bit, and you're like, oh, wow, look at that ball he just played, or look how quick that happened. And he doesn't really have many of those moments yet.
No, he's not those moments yet, but, you know, the thing I would say his best quality is he likes to recycle the ball well, which I think is important for a team like ourselves. There's a lot of possession in the game. He doesn't lose the ball. I always say in games, you know, as long as we've got the ball, nobody can hurt us. When you're maybe, you know, away at a tough place like Fir Park, as we were in the second last game before the break, I thought he played really well that night. He's a player who looks after the ball well, and I think he's been important, as you say as well, Quinn. I think that point in experience is something myself and Gianni were talking earlier about, losing characters like Scott Brown from the dressing room, and all his experience and whatever else, and bringing in guys like McCarthy, Moy latterly, Joe Hart as well. It was important that you had some experience and then guys who'd had a prolonged career and been through it. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how he comes back after the World Cup too, because he was obviously building up game time, 20 appearances, looks good, but it wasn't always 90 minutes and whatever else. He's been practically playing every match for Australia for the full 90 minutes. So I'll be interested to see how he gets on. Have you been impressed by anybody else at World Cup yet, Gianni, Celtic wise? And obviously Dyson's Japan beat Germany. He came off for the game. He did have the ball in the back of the net. Jura's been playing against some decent opposition.
I'm not a big fan, mate. I'm not. I don't know if we play him out of position or we don't play him out. I don't know. I think and I know he scored some goals, but some of his crosses have just been absolutely dire for Celtic. I've got to be honest with you. I mean, if you want to be completely honest, like, you can get a cross wrong by maybe a metre or so, or a couple of metres, but some of them have been, 15, 20 metres away from target. I just don't, and he runs non-stop, and he gives it 100%. But I just don't know. I don't know if we're just playing him out of position or not. I don't know.
It's interesting that Moriyasu does play him, through the middle for Japan. Whether he'll start him in their next game, which is a bit of a crunch game for them to try and meet the knockouts, going to be interesting. But it is interesting, as you say, because all those goals at Yokohama, I think he did, Ange played him through the middle, whereas we seem to use him as a left-sided winger at Celtic. So yeah,
I mean, do you agree with me at least? I'm not trying to dig into it, but I just feel.
I think some of his best goals have came, from that central area. I think about that header against Bodo Glimt. Where is he? He's playing in the centre forward position. His goal in his debut against Hibs. Where is he? He's going through the middle and whatever else. He's no one. I think I've always said to Quinny, Jota will always give you a bit of magic in a game, which you like from a winger. You're starting to see that from Haksabanovic now. Abad has done it since joining us. Maeda's just not that type of player. He's not going to take the ball, go past a couple of boys and then stick it in the back of the net. He likes that wee ball in behind, and he'll get onto it, no bother, and he'll probably put the ball in the back of the net for you. But when he's out wide, he's. I think there was one. I think it was Leipzig in the Champions League. And remember, he whacked the ball across, and I think it ended up about 2 rows in front. I mean, I sit in row PP at Celtic Park, so I think that summed it up. But I think there might be. I don't know whether it's out of position or whatever else, or he's just a slow starter. I know he joined us last season after a full season in Japan, came in the January, and was outstanding for some parts of those latter stages of the league. So we'll see how it goes with that. But back into the kind of central area of the park, good boost this morning, gentlemen. It looks as if Callum McGregor's on his way back to fitness, Gianni. It's saying that he's probably going to feature against Rennes in this friendly a week before.
Oh, wow.
Pittodrie, would you have any kind of reservations about firing him in for that game at Pittodrie? As I said, we've already got to Easter Road and Ibrox. Or is it a case of he's your captain? If he's ready to play, fire him into the team?
I mean, if he's ready, I don't know what fitness he's at, or how if he's mended or not. But if he's ready, then the Celtic are not going to risk him, for sure. So absolutely. I mean, if Ange will make the right call and say, "Aye, the boy's ready to play," and if he is, you've got to have him in. He's your captain. He's your captain for a reason. He does fire up the team. I know Vickers has done a great job since he's kind of stepped back, and so is Joe Hart as well. But get him in if he's ready and he's fit. Get him in. We all need a bit of McGregor in life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Quinny knows that's certainly my mantra, because he's my favourite player. That book's been torn apart since it was bought. I think I've read every single page a good few times. But Quinny, I think, just due to his role in the team, and again, different circumstances last season when he sustained the facial injury, he came back with his Superman mask on right into the team for that Derby game. But I think it would be a big boost to the team, even though I think Matt O'Reilly's played particularly well in that area. I still think with Callum McGregor in your team, he's just a really vital aspect to the whole Ange system. We describe him, Gianni, as the kind of Celtic metronome, and midfield. He just keeps everything ticking over. But Quinny, do you think there's any reservations about firing him in for the Pittodrie game, or is it just a case of seeing how he pulls up against after the Reigns game, and if he's absolutely fine, get him in for the game at Pittodrie?
I think the manager will be bursting to get him back in, and it kind of ties into what Gianni was saying about Maeda, because in midfield, no one's been playing their proper position since McGregor's been out. It's like, oh, let's try O'Reilly there. Moy had a wee shot. Abelgard gets some minutes, and whatever else. And I think it's not just the improvement McGregor gives to the midfield, but it's then putting O'Reilly back where he belongs and giving Rio the support in his position that he's kind of been missing to an extent, because no one's really done the O'Reilly job properly since McGregor's been out, And similar to what Gianni was saying about Maeda, is I thought he was going to be coming as a central striker at first, and like a lot of his goals at Yokohama came from off the left or from centre, because there was a few guys in that team, like our team, that can play different sides and can do different things. So I think Maeda's maybe one of these guys, like maybe some of our midfielders, that maybe suffer a wee bit from being too versatile. And then again, like I've said before about Maeda, I think he needs to play every week before you get him into a tempo of, he's going to get 10 to 15 goals and 8 or 9 assists a season. And then when you don't have that, and then again, it's sometimes you'll play left, sometimes you'll play right. You'll get Livingston will play you through the middle. I don't think he works well in that environment. I think he wants to have his position, and then if he knows he's getting 60 minutes or 30, whatever he's getting, it's consistent, and then he can build a rhythm up with that. Because the best form we've seen from all the Celtic players is, if you think back to the beginning of the season before we had midweek football, we played the same 11 for like 5-6 weeks in a row, and we were smashing Dundee United by 9 and 6 past this team and whatever. So with McGregor coming back, and who knows what the World Cup hangover will be like for the lads that are away, what kind of break they get or whatever. But I think the manager is bussing to get the best guys in the best positions for the second half of the season and really like kick on.
And I think most of them will be out anyway. I think.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, the Australian feat, I don't think it was that. I mean, they only really came up against Denmark. I mean, that's only really competing against Denmark. Reality, of any players that we could turn around and say, the Ericssons of the world, or the Schmeichels of the world, whatever. But you can't name. Was it Saudi Arabia or something like that? No, it wasn't. Tunisia. I mean, I couldn't name one Tunisian player. So I don't know if.
I don't think I could.
The only one I know is Kazri, and that's for years ago at the World Cup. That's the only one I know. the Baldy lad. That's the only one I know. But
I think they get an easy group, as well, and So I mean, they're really only second place. They're never going to compete for France, and France put out a second string last night. So France are always going to win that group. So their only competitors really were Denmark. That's the main competitors.
And it's interesting that I think before, Quinny, you touched on that Peru game, that there was chat around Graham Arnold actually losing his job because he probably shouldn't have been anywhere near the Peru game. That I think a lot of Aussies, Socceroos fans thought they should have qualified for the tournament, before having to go that route through. So it's pretty interesting. The only grim thing about it was, I think somebody put up a graphic this morning, and it's got Dennis Law, Danny McGrain, Billy Bremner, Kenny Dalglish, and Jason Cummins. And it's sport the odd one out because, there's whatever his name is, the cum dog or whatever they call him. I know, and he's qualified through, so unbelievable.
I thought we were going to get those memes around Alexis McAllister. The further Argentina go is going to be the furthest McAllister to, get the World Cup.
I mean, Suter's done pretty well at the back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised that they don't mention Suter, but they'll mention Cummins,
yeah, aye. But it's one that you're looking at. I mean, people were calling it like a Scottish select, and it is. I mean, there's a lot of players in there, but again, it kind of probably talks to the strength of Ange Postecoglou, the environment he's created, not just at ourselves, Gianni, but Scottish football that you're seeing. Hearts and St Mirren particularly dip in that market of Australian players, and possibly looking at creating a pathway to them that they can come to Scotland, get game time at what we consider the lesser clubs in the country, and end up in the World Cup squad. Pretty incredible.
I mean, when you look at Group E, when you've got Spain and Germany in the same group, That's the difference that Australia were so fortunate. They didn't have that. They had France and basically Denmark, who Denmark's not exactly a force. So, that's how I feel that they've managed to qualify.
Yeah. So they've, and I think Denmark's been a pretty big letdown for folk. But next time you're maybe in the boardroom at the boardroom at Celtic Park, Gianni, don't let Big Ange hear that about his beloved Socceroos, because I think after watching that video, the one I'm talking about where he's banging the screen and all that, I don't like to be in the receiving end of a telling off from him. But touched on first 5 games back. What's your take on this? We know we're going to be up against a rival who will hope to be rejuvenated. If a new boss in, where they are, we don't know. It's focus on ourselves. We got to Pittodrie first. We were successful there last season. Sent back-to-back home games. We then got Easter Road and Ibrox. We broke the Easter Road hoodoo last season, gone there and winning. We once again proved we could go to Ibrox, not be under the cosh for the game. We went 1-0 down. We came back 2-1 winners. I'm not too worried about this running. Gianni, are you? I just look at it and think our domestic form's been that good. We've rotated the squad that well that we're able to do that, and we should come out here unscathed. I'll be pretty happy, if we come out here having, won 4 of them and possibly drawn 1, and that one's against our rivals in it. But I'd much rather be win the game there.
I mean, the next 6 games, I think, will obviously cement the league. If we can go to Pittodrie, we can go to Hibs. I think are we away to Kilmarnock or something, or as well as one of the.
I think after, we've got St Johnstone, I think, at home, and I think it's Livingston. It's a rearranged game from the start of September at home. Yeah, both are at home, back to back.
Yeah, no, I think if we get through obviously it's Pittodrie, Hibs, and then we're at Ibrox. So those are the 3 crucial games, really. And if we can get through them unscathed, a draw at Ibrox is fine. We're not chasing; they're chasing. So I'm not saying we won't win, and a win's probably it's what we're aiming for, and that's what will make us happy. But in the cold hard light, a draw is not going to harm us because they're not making up any ground. But I still think we'll soldier on. I don't think Beale's really got much of a. What difference has he got to do from Van Bronckhorst? Yeah, every new manager adds a bit of energy in the first couple of games, but after the first couple of games, it kind of subsides to what it was if you don't make the changes. And our squad is strong. We're improving on the squad. We're flying. There's a great buzz about Celtic. So we've nothing to worry about. We just play our game, and I think we'll beat Aberdeen. I feel we'll beat them comfortably. I'm sure we'll beat Hibs comfortably. I just don't see us dropping points.
No. I don't either, and we touched on that St Mirren game earlier on, and I think that game maybe just came at the wrong time for us in terms of where the manager thought the squad was at, in terms of minutes and whatever else. If he'd maybe made those changes to the squad a month later, I think I saw a different Celtic team. Quinny, do you think that rotation is going to be something that sticks for the rest of the season? We know how difficult and grueling. I think it was 13 games in 43 days that came, and it was 4 Champions League games in that mix. Do you think he's going to stick with that type of rotation? I mean, those 2 games at Celtic Park look like ones he could do that, and he could do a kind of hybridy thing at Easter Road where you maybe bring in the odd few changes. I don't think you've got any issues when you're doing it in the attack line. If you've got McGregor back in there, you can do it in midfield. We possibly bring in Moy or whoever else in. And you're hoping that guys like Abelgard, who's maybe had that wee bit more of a chance to, in the training part when the manager comes back, a better player after this break, and you're, Haksabanovic and Moy in that conversation too.
Yeah, I think I was actually looking at the lineups and stuff because I'm starting to get myself into the season for projecting all the lineups for December, trying picking teams and whatever. And I can see us quite easily keeping up a bit of a rotation pattern in the sense that we've seen Bernabe start to feature a lot in home matches, or was it away? Sorry, but we've seen a pattern of left backs kind of coming in and out for home and away matches, and a few other positions as well. Like Giakoumakis would play, and we've spoke about Abada when he comes in and stuff. So I think some of those little rotation patterns will kick on, but I really think in this initial period, I don't think he'll mess with centre backs. I don't think he'll mess with the midfield, and I think he'll try and keep Jota and Haksabanovic in the team as often as possible. But I think maybe about 3 or 4 pieces will probably turn around depending on how the manager sees the individual game getting won.
That's the beautiful thing about Celtic is we've got so many duels, and every team needs somebody to come to life and a bit of magic. And one game it might be Haksabanovic, then it could be Hatate, then it could be Jota, then it could be Abada finding his form again. We're not even touching the forwards. So I'm saying, like, Celtic have these perils that when they come to life, they win games. And that's the beautiful thing about Celtic is we just don't rely on one person every single week, in and out. We've Haksabanovic will turn up 2 goals. And let's not forget Jamie Forrest. They brought him back in. He's got a hat trick, a couple of goals a game.
He's got a hat trick, yep.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, and then it was a couple of goals after it. There's guys like that who are solid players that can win games as well. And they can make a difference as well. So we've just got that depth that we can rotate, but I feel that we should not rotate the back. I feel the back four shouldn't be rotated as much. Because that needs to stay solid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just taking our last 10 minutes, Gianni, but we can't have you on without kind of talking about, being a Celtic fan and your line of work and whatever else. I know there's probably a lot of fangirls on here, including myself, with one of your mates and Martin Compston. I know everybody likes him in line of duty. I'm a fan of him in the nest. But what's your kind of, Tony Kern's another actor that you're pally with. What's that like, being out in the US and kind of sharing that the good news, if you will, with other actors? Is it something you try and do when you're on set or whatever and talk about Celtic, or is it just a kind of natural thing with the other lads if you're maybe doing something together?
Yeah, I think the whole thing about Celtic is Americans are, they're all about sportsman passion and all that stuff. So, I think that when you tell the likes of an American about Celtic and initially it's just like, oh, it's just like Boston Celtics. And you're like, no, completely different. And you always go back to the 1967. I mean, that is always the talking point of Celtic. And when players win Champions Leagues and European Cups, whether it was Puskas with Real Madrid and they come from wherever, and these were a group of 11 men that, within an hour drive, you could pick everyone up. Like, that was a whole beautiful thing, and it can never be emulated again. And they think, what was the first British team to win? They'll say Manchester United or Liverpool or something like that. No, it's Celtic. It's Glasgow Celtic, and you start talking about the fan base, and it's just you're happy to talk about something that you love, and that's what, it really comes across. And you just giving eachbody, dropping a bit of Celtic in people's lives. It's good.
And did those kind of friendships with Martin and Tony that I've mentioned, did that progress more from living out in LA and maybe joining up and watching games, or did you already have a kind of good friendship before you moved out there?
I don't really. Martin and I moved to Vegas, so Tony stayed in LA, so it was if I was in Vegas and Martin's there, we'll if it's a decent game, we'll watch the game together. But no, I don't think. I mean, obviously it's a common denominator and it's a common bond, but I think friendships are, if they're just based on a club, then they're no real friendships.
Absolutely. Although I think I've got some that some thought I would see every week at Celtic Park, but whether I'd maybe go out for a drink with them is another thing, another question. But just in terms of that, I've been over. I've never been to the convention. My dad's been over to it and whatever else. But I know out with kind of convention time or whatever else, there's a big Celtic support in LA and whatever else. And one story I heard which is cracking is Rod Stewart, going down to watch a derby game, and I think he bought every punter in the pub over there a drink after Celtic had won. I think it was one of these ones, and that with Mold Rangers. I know that's becoming a kind of a treat that happens every other season now, so it's a bit hard to remember what one it was. But again, having somebody of that profile, I know you know Rod quite well, Gianni. What was Rod like? Because it's great having somebody like his profile promoting the club, isn't it?
Rod's such a wonderful, and I know he's always delved in the controversy up here because he has that. I'm not even going to talk about it, but Rod's a gentleman. He's an absolute gentleman. He really, really is. And he loves Celtic just as much as you and I do. And, I remember the last time, actually, he texted me last night because I'm going to see him on Saturday. But the last time we saw him was in Vegas. I think it was June or July it was. No, it must have been, maybe it was May, I think. May or June it was. And I took my wife Amanda through and, and he's just, we go through backstage and he's so lovely, Amanda, did you enjoy, he's just so welcoming, and he had a ton of people waiting in the back to see him, and he's like, come on, let's sit down. So we sat down and he says, you sit here, and honestly, for about an hour, all we did was speak about Celtic, and that's all he wanted. That was his passion. He just wanted to speak about Celtic. And you've got all these people from wherever they are in the world, America, wherever they fly in from, but his passion was to talk about Celtic, and that's and you admire that, because it's just like you, if you and I are sitting in a pub somewhere just having a pint, that's really what it is. It's what do you think about him, and did you see him? He was at, and what do you think? And that's what Rod's really about. He loves a bit of banter about Celtic, and just like the rest of us, he really is one of us. I think he's, when it comes to Celtic, his love for Celtic's right there, up there.
Yeah, I'm a big Faces fan, so my love for Rod Stewart is there by his music anyway, and I think he's a bit of a character too. So absolutely, and I hope you enjoy the gig on Saturday night. It looks as if it's a good gig. A few of my pals have been along to see it. I noticed that Frank McAvaney was there the other night too, so I'm sure you'll be enjoying it. And I was reading an article the other week that after we beat Rangers, he sends Ange a big crate of Aussie
wine all the time.
Aussie wine too all the time. So
yeah.
I'm sure that there's no complaints there from the boss with that kind of thing. Just kind of lastly, Gianni, to touch on your charitable work, can you just give us a wee kind of flavour of what it's been like, kind of connecting in with the Kano and the Celtic Foundation?
I mean, they're both great charities. The Celtic Foundation constantly raise, and it's not just for one sector of care that's needed in our community. It's spread out vastly from Glasgow to other continents. The foundation, or if it's not a sleepover, they're doing it's non-stop, the foundation. And Jane Maguire, Tony Hamilton, they do such wonderful work. And also there's so many great trustees, like they just, Chris Traynor, they just give, Martin Brown, they just give complete dedication to the charity. And as far as the Kano go, I mean, thousands of kids, and they don't just take them to the game, they give them a scarf, and they get them some food, and it's just the whole experience. And it gives the kids something to talk about. And these are kids that live in depressed areas that never get a chance to go to games, and maybe they feel they don't integrate. So they bring them in and they make them feel like they belong, and they give them something special in their life, and that's what it really is. And we can't bring kids in and 365 days a year, but if we can give them something really special for that one day that might last weeks, and it's a memory that they won't lose, and months, then it just brings a smile to their face, and it gives them just that little sparkle. And that's what it's all about. That's what the Kano is really about. And the people behind it, Mark, and they're just they're committed. It really is a charitable club. Everybody's wanting to give. So anytime they do food drives or anything, 100%, if you can, get behind it, help them out. It's all going to a great cause.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give a wee plug for my uni CSC that I was a formal member of but still involved in. We did a sponsored charity walk yesterday for the Kano and the Glasgow North East Food Bank. Our donation, we always do this at Christmas, is sitting just off £800. So I'll stick the link. I'll ask if we can stick the link under the video, and if anybody's watching and can donate anything at all, whether it's only a couple of pence or a pound or whatever, please do donate, because it's going to a good cause, two good causes here, and I think that's important at Christmas time, all throughout the year, but more importantly at Christmas time, as you say, Gianni, kids from backgrounds that that aren't maybe getting as good a chance at life and whatever. It's important that they get these experiences and can have the best chance in life. So we can't thank you enough for joining us in this Celts Are Here pod. It's been a pleasure to have you on. You're welcome anytime. If you want to fire over any of your good contacts in your phone book, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm sure myself and Rod have a right good chat about Ronnie Wood or whoever else.
Well, it was Chris Shaw actually that reached out to me. He's like, "Oh, my friends," and I says, "Oh, I know them anyway." And he's like, "Yeah, but yeah, if MD wants to come on, I'll let them know."
Good stuff. Gianni, thanks for joining us on the Celts Are Here weekly flagship, and to all our usual listeners, viewer, cheers, and we'll catch you again next week. Thank you.
Fantastic. Hail, hail.